Welcome to the Urban Farmer Rewind. In each episode, I'll be joined by a farmer or guest to talk about what we heard on this week's episode of the Urban Farmer. Hit subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Now, let's jump right into it. It's the Urban Farmer Rewind. All right, Urban Farmer Rewind. This is week 7 of the show, looking back. A lot of this episode focused around community. And 10 years later, one thing I've learned now from my own experience and the experience from talking to so many others that I wouldn't have realized back then was how crucial community support is to local businesses. And I'm specifically saying businesses, not farms, because I look at myself as a small business and I've benefited so much from the community that supports me. I mean, the podcast in a way is its own non-monetary business that has a community around it. Just talked to somebody this week for a podcast that runs a cannery, and their whole business model is based around a community sales program. It's huge. I think a lot of people get into farming and there's maybe a mindset of, if I build it and open the doors, when I open the doors, there'll be a line out the door of people waiting to buy my stuff. And that's not always the case, not exclusive to farming. I think there's a lot that goes into building a community, and that's one of the things you can start doing right away. When you look at Roebuck Farm, are there any specific examples that come to mind where the community either bailed you out of a situation, supported you during hard times, or really gave you a boost to take things to the next level?
Sure. I mean, straight away, I think to the hard times. I've said for a long time, Roebuck Farm's not me. It's all the people that have got our back, and that looks different year to year, but also the different types of support that we have. So I think we don't grow a complete diet. This is one example, but we I'll give you some examples of the food: honey, fish, beef, milk. We don't produce these, and then longer season vegetables. There's some that we don't produce either, but we people in these sectors support us, and we support them, and so we don't have to produce all of those things. And the result of that is I'm feeling better in my early 50s and in my early 20s, and I think nutrition and health, we just can't put a value on that. And I think really I have that going on because of the people that we are able to have fun with, say it that way.
Yeah, there's a lot the farming community has going for it. Community is a big aspect, both from without and from within. I think one, and we've talked about this a lot, how much farmers are willing to support other farmers by sharing resources, knowledge. It seems like everybody I talk to is like, oh, I'll hit this person up with a DM on Instagram and they always get back to me. And I think that's really cool to be a part of a community that does that. You get it from the outside. I've talked to some farmers this year who needed to build things like a new greenhouse, and they reach out to their customers and say, we're expanding the farm. We're putting a new greenhouse in. Uh, we're looking for people to help us grow. You can directly contribute to our farm and our future. And they have people just send them checks, not looking for anything in return. I know personally, I saw something like that when I was doing the Permaculture Voices conference, of people overpaying for a ticket or basically just making a donation, not looking for anything in return because they identified with the cause. I know the way your sales streams are set up, you're not selling D2C, direct to consumers, families. You sell through a restaurants or stores or little shops that then the families access that way. So there's effectively an intermediary between you and the end user. Do you like, could you reach out to your stores or shops, do you think, and say, we'd love to do this. We could, if this project, whatever it is, if we did it, we could do these things. We could provide you with this. Your customers would benefit from that. Could you support us in this journey? Is that possible with the relationships you have? Do you think they would do that?
Yes, absolutely. So, um, firstly, we are direct to market in the retail space. So we are price setters, not price takers, and that's a key thing for us. And in our retail stores, nobody's ordering anything. It's our creative license. It's our fridge. It can't be empty. So we stock and rotate it with anything, anytime. That is a huge part that makes what we do enjoyable and allows us to be more consistent. But with every business we work with, we've had all of them through the farm. And so we're now 7 years with our first retail store and restaurant. Just last week, so it's called Monica's. It's a breakfast lunch model. We like this one. The Monica's team came through the farm. They had for about 3 hours. We put on a feed for them. We gave them a tour, and the new chefs that hadn't been here prior. And there's a few outcomes that I really enjoy here. Suddenly, they've got the chefs, front of house, etc., out of their business space where it's like work. It's like a team building
Yeah.
exercise, and they learn new things about each other, but also they connect to what our food production looks like, how it works, and we've always done that, and it really helps us all get on the same page with chefs. They understand that we need orders before we mix the salad if they want it unmixed, etc. And just really what's involved with it, what it looks like, and the new innovation. You show someone something like greens harvester, and they just can't believe it. They had
Right.
no idea.
Did you
And so
initiate that or did they request that?
a little bit of both. So this restaurant, yeah, it's both. But no, we're always prompting. We're always prompting. If we take a little time to host anyone that works in our stores, suddenly they are our um, promoters. They know what it looks like. They know what's involved, and they're front of house and retail, and they love to educate our customers as well. And then also because we're delivery, stock and rotation, we're we're at the front line with our customer base continuously. So now Tanya, my wife, is on deliveries, and she's Tanya Mercer. Now she's Tanya Roebuck. She's driving the Roebuck truck across town. We're fifth generation, and all our family have been in business. So people might not know Tanya, but they know the name, and the public are jumping on her, going, "Oh, how are you related? How are you connected to the Roebucks?" And then they hit her with the story about, you know, it's a really really nice way to connect with more people. I'd say it's very different than social media.
Oh, absolutely. I think, I mean, okay, this is my take from a farmer, from hearing farmers say this, so you can refute this if there's some inaccuracy in here. If you can get chefs to taste your product, that's a huge step forward versus just pitching them over the phone or a DM. If they can get them to actually taste it and taste the quality and feel it and see it and touch it and look at it, that's a huge win. I think hearing this and just thinking about personal experiences, if you can get them to come to the farm, that builds another level of loyalty. I think about things I've done. You tour a winery or a coffee shop or a brewery or whatever. You talk to a business owner. You start to build a little bit of human to human connection, even if it's surfacey. You might talk to somebody for a few minutes about their business, but you feel You're closer to them than some random stranger that's faceless and nameless that you've never met, and there's a bit of loyalty there. And somebody who comes out to your farm for the day, even if it's an hour or 2 hours, that's they took time out of their day to do that. They know you took time to host them. You show them around. They've had an experience as a human having that interaction in the place with you. If they fit, as long as the quality is there and pricing is, in the range, I think a lot of people would default to, well, I'll support the farmer that I know, that I've been to, that I can tell a story of. So now if somebody asks me about this produce, I can say, well, it's great, but I've also been to the farm, so it kind of builds their credibility or what they could say. But it also is the differentiator if they have to choose between Roebuck Farm and some other farm on the island that just randomly messaged them, they're like, well, you guys are kind of doing the same thing. I know Jodi, I've been there. We had a good time. I'm going to go there. And I think that's worked. I just think about the businesses that I frequent for get my car serviced at. It's a place where I've gone for a long time. I feel loyalty there, trust, all that type of stuff. We go to the same little shops to get different things here and there. And it's a lot of it is based on familiarity and some relationship either with the brand or with a worker or maybe the owner. And that's worth a lot because switching's hard. I want to go to a new shop. It's like now I'm taking a whole bunch of chances. I don't know their quality. I don't know who they are. I don't know the owner. I don't know any of it. And I'm leaving this all behind. So if you've seen that,
Yeah, sure. I think so. I've probably got a little sidetracked here, Diego, but so that same restaurant that just came out last week, we don't sell merchandise on our website, but all our chefs are wearing our merchandise in service. So not only are we on the menu, our brand is, the customers can see people wearing our merchandise, and here's an outcome, and tell me if I'm getting sidetracked, but my eldest daughter just turned 21, and I'd like to say a couple of stories about just how connected we are with our businesses. It's really easy to look at retail space and go, oh, it's soulless and there's no community. My daughter's back studying university from home. She's doing commerce and HR. She's working at this restaurant, and she's taken on duty manager and bar manager, liquor license. And she's like, oh, I don't get paid a lot more for doing this. But the opportunity is it's a foot in the door. It's fantastic. She just turned 21. The restaurant said to her, would you like to have your 21st here? And they did everything they could to make it happen without it costing $10,000. And we supplied a lot of the food. They lowered their price on cocktails. We put 50% in, and so on. It was just a super fun night. Now, they weren't making a lot of money off it. All the staff worked for free,
that's
and it was just a really super nice night. And then Izzy also works in there. People say to me, is your daughter going to take over the farm? And I say, I've got no idea. I don't really think about that much. But what Izzy has learned or seen is our work ethic, and she's applying that to her direction in life. She's serving these two guys that come in regularly. So Izzy's studying HR, and they can tell, oh, this woman's cares as about the service she's providing us. And so they said to her, what do you do? And she said, I'm studying HR. And they said, well, we've got an HR company. Would you like to be a summer intern? It's all these values, I think, that are, I'm going to say it this way, way more important than your bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the other forms of capital that I think we've hit on in some form of podcasts. It's a web, right? Like small businesses are a web. One business standing alone that's small gets conquered by invading armies. But you have a bunch of small businesses that band together, you start to form all sorts of interconnections, not just with product, but a lot of times it can be moral support, it can be advice, it can be like little things like this, like, hey, we'll offer to have a party here, or it's tangential, does one of your kids need this type thing? And like we try and do that what we can locally to connect with other people, and like just as at a family level. We run a small businesses, so it's like if we have no other families that have moms or dads trying to get like a little thing going, making salsa or bread, it's like, well, try and support them. I don't need to support Ortega selling it at Walmart or something like that.
Mm.
um because I think it what goes around comes around. And I think if you build a community, people start to understand. There's a little bit more of a buffer. If you think about, I mean, I don't know how big Amazon is there. I mean, you guys must have it, right?
Yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah. So
yep.
like on Amazon, right? It's mostly a face. Well, it not most. It is a faceless buy. You buy off the machine, and stuff shows up. If you want to return something, you got a problem. It's like I don't even think about it. I just return it. And we had a customer today that just had an issue with a product. I think it was a factory defect that we just didn't catch, can't catch everything. And I was just explaining to them, like, look, if you ever have a problem, just let me know. I'm happy to replace it, make it right, refund you, do whatever I have to do. And I think they kind of came into it like they were going to have to battle, because that's a lot of the usual retail expectation of, I'm gonna have to, like, I almost have to psych myself up to get this return done. Like, I'm pissed off. This is a joke. I spent this on it. It should have been this. And it was like, I get it. We're here to help you. Like, what can we do? And I think they were taken a little bit aback by that, because that's not the usual way, at least commerce is done on the large scale. If I think about your restaurant sales, so you fill the fridges, as you mentioned. So you sell direct to consumer that way, but you're not like handing the consumer the product. The store is really, they control the real estate of it.
Yep.
If you wanted another freezer, could you go to the store and say, we think we can get another freezer in here, and get them to buy it?
We haven't brought any
Okay.
refrigeration in any of our stores.
Okay, so
Is that
they're paying for it then.
100%? I mean, most of the stores already have, oodles of refrigeration. Yeah, we haven't brought any refrigeration yet. We did convert one freezer to a fridge, and we do the branding and everything. But also, we've covered this in early podcasts, but we're consignment. So there's no risk for our stores. Even the supermarkets, we've got them on our T's and C's. So if it doesn't sell, we take the hit, not the shop.
What if you wanted more space? That the risk for them is they maybe take space away from other products to give to you.
Yeah.
How would a conversation like that look like?
So we've got, I'd like to talk about two scenarios. Our new supermarket we started deep winter, is currently our busiest, and just context, we're in a double recession. We've only got a single fridge, and it's empty every 36 hours. So for 8 months now, we've been delivering every 36 hours. We would love a double fridge, but it depends on the store. But in the store, we would happily buy the fridge. So, retail space is a premium, and we're just going to play the long game with this one. We've settled in for 8 months now. We still haven't had them on the farm to show them around. That's the next step. Kind of repeating this conversation we just had. Once they know what it looks like and what's involved, and our commitment to keeping that fridge full every 36 hours, that's when the conversation will come in. Like, we would love a double fridge. And the other thing, like in a supermarket, is the location. At one supermarket, we're at the entranceway to the vegetable production, and at the other one, we're at the end. And this is interesting. Both, so one supermarket you see us first, we're pole position, and the other one, you've already done your shopping, and you go, oh, what's this? Roebuck Farm. We've changed a couple of labels on things this year. Our region is called Taranaki. For our cherry tomatoes, we changed the label from cherry tomatoes to Taranaki tomatoes. Just make it that simple and clear that, mate, they're from here. And so here's what we're seeing in our fridge. In the supermarket where we're last, people are shopping, they get their, whatever industrial tomato, and then they get to our fridge and they're, oh, I can get a local product, and they dump the other tomatoes in our fridge and take us.
Right.
That's a nice feedback loop.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, just the idea of rebranding it to the region to bring it that much more obvious. I think that's huge, probably in especially a store setting where you're not there to talk to each customer and tell the story. So the packaging has to communicate it. And you have whatever, a 3 by 3 inch, or I don't know, what is it, 10 by 10 centimeter label to, squeeze it on there and make it easily readable. Do you notice a difference in volume of sales based on where you are in the store?
Not really, not really. We are branded. At the independent butchery, they change where we are from summer to winter. Within their store, don't see any difference. No, not really.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think you're right there. The premium in retail, the fridge is really not the expensive part. The floor space and the placement is where all the value is.
sure. Can I tell a story? So, uh, the supermarket we started at on day 3 of COVID, we've been there now nearly 5 years. There's a new owner. I invited him to the farm once he'd settled into his business. He's got 250 employees. I'm not going to jump on him in the first week and go, hey. So once we saw how the changes that he'd made with the supermarket, we invited him out to the farm, and he's an entrepreneur. He's very passionate about the industry and his team. And so I just wanted to really get to know him more. I'd met him in the past, and we showed him around the farm for about an hour and a half. And I just let him do all the talking, and he told us about his 15-year vision with the supermarket. And when, this is retail space, but what he's seeing in the supermarket is we've got an ultra processed sliced meat called luncheon. And he said, and this is the budget supermarket, and he's saying consumers are telling us they don't want it. He said, so we're removing it. And he said, you go into the supermarket at 6 p.m. and you hear the screaming from the kids, it's dinner time. He said, we're putting in ready to go food. And I was like, I love that. That's fantastic. But then I think very different space than real local food is what he calls the diabetes aisle in the supermarket, which is, all of those sugar drinks and all of that stuff. Those companies pay a premium for their space and just to be there. And they're generally low margin, high volume products. And he's trying to work on, how can we supply more options to people so that they're not just coming out of here eating trash and then needing, uh, health services and doctors or heading down the diabetes lane. Pretty interesting to see that the business owner has a lot of effect on people's options. And so I said to him, so he gave me his 15-year plan, and I showed him our development work we're making, and I then reiterated our 15-year plan. I was like, we're not going nowhere.
Yeah, let's grow together, right?
Yeah, nice analogy. Yeah, sure.
Put your stuff in the pre-made meals, and now it's accessible in a variety of ways.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I really nerd out on is stuff like the placement of products and displaying of products. And I've been going to the farmers market more recently, more than I ever have in the past few years, because my daughter started um, selling stuff once a month at our market. So that brings me there. And it's interesting to see the different ways people display stuff.
Mm.
And I'm not, these people are busy. I'm not all up in them, trying to really figure it out. But there's kind of two display patterns, right? So we're in Southern California. You have people that come from really far away. Some of these farms are in Northern California, like far enough away you don't know where they are. And that could be, I don't know, 500 plus miles away. So way up in the Central Valley. And, they're spreading it out. The produce looks good, that type of thing. And maybe people who come into the farmer's market buy because it's farmer's market. It's not a grocery store. There's just not a lot of like local storytelling. And I don't know how important that is to people of, thinking of your Taranaki tomatoes, where I'm in Vista. Is they're like Vista grown and, harvested right here from past conversations with Ben Hartman. He tries to sell everything within something like 10 miles of his farm. So, really ultra local. And I think as people start out, let me back up. One of the things I remember doing during this series and seeing is a lot of people started up farms and then they would struggle and they'd blame it on urban farming doesn't work. And I've still seen that some in the YouTube comments. And I think it's interesting because it's it's not something like aspirin. Aspirin works, right? It's not it works or it doesn't work. Like it's been proven to work. I take it, it works, and that's it. Businesses are all different, whether it's personal training or farming or something else. You can have a business model that's been shown to work in New Zealand, but I could try and apply it here in Southern California, and the market might be different, the climate's different. I might not run it well, and it might fail, but then I'll blame the business model versus trying to actually figure out what went wrong. And I think one of the issues from even talking to some people in the past on podcasts that had really low revenues and were struggling to make enough off their farm was this mindset of, well, I'm just focusing on growing, but I can't be profitable. But that's usually because you're not selling enough and they've never developed this customer base to buy their product and cultivate it. And when you're developing a customer base, you need to know, well, who are the customers? What do they want? Am I growing what they want? Am I storytelling that way? And I think one thing that's been clear from talking to you is, and you obviously grow crops that you can grow well consistently,
Mm.
but you're growing stuff that you can sell. And you've talked about kind of dabbling in cucumbers, and I would think you're saying, hey, we can grow them really well, but we just can't sell nearly as many as we can grow. So you have to throttle back there. And there's this adjustment of, we've learned here's what our market wants. Let's make that. And then we can try and introduce new things, but you're not foolish enough to, I don't know, go out and plant, I'll pick on kohlrabi again, 10 beds of kohlrabi and then expect to bring that all to your refrigerators in your grocery stores and have that sell out. I mean, if you look at your things that go into the fridges, it's salad mix, tomatoes, root veg. What
Yep.
else?
And a few bunch, we call them spring onions, green onions, corianders year round. We're doing peppers, small peppers. And we're always trialing stuff and testing. So the two things we're testing: three, can we grow it? What does that look like? Does it sell? And then testing a new market. The summer before, we tested 2 new sales points. and we stuck it out 3 months, but it just wasn't financially worth us even being there in the end. We're now testing out wholesaling. We're not seeing the numbers we thought could have been possible, but with the wholesaling, we're playing the long game with that. What we'd like to see is, and you need to have early conversations with people within, not day one, I'm going to start a farm, go and make some promises, but with crops that as you are, your production's up, and you start to stack in new crops or new sales points, some early conversations. Our new supermarket, we had a 9-month lead in with the new owner coming to purchase. And there's crops we love to grow, and we see a lot of other growers. Spinach, we know that that's a great popular crop. We just not got the sales with it, but we're not throwing it out. We just lower our volumes and keep testing the market. If it doesn't start to lift, we'll say, oh, we'll drop it. But there could be a surprise as well.
For testing, is it just plant a little bit? Since you have fridge space, you put it in the fridge and you just see if it stays there or if it moves?
Yeah, so dill, last 2 years, 3 years, we've been growing dill, which I don't really know a lot about. And then people said, oh, it's amazing with fish. And I was like, well, we supply an independent fishery. Restaurants are ordering it, sales are there, but it's probably doing 20% the sales of coriander. But it could have been double the sales of curry, you know?
Like, have you put spinach in your fridges?
Yes, last 2 seasons. Yeah.
And it just doesn't move at a volume that you'd want it to move? Is that?
Yeah, for sure. And we're open that it may in the future. One, without getting sidetracked, one thing I would like to see is government. In terms of food labeling, everything's got to be labeled GMO or free and all of that. So, in New Zealand, hydroponics is not labeled. It doesn't have to be labeled as hydroponically grown. So we're up against that. If there was a law change and every hydroponic producer had to have it on their label, there's a potential of big change coming for growers producing local food grown naturally. One little shift there could be quite a change.
You're the second farmer that's brought this up this week.
The
What is
big,
it between soil growers and hydroponic growers? Where's the divide for somebody who just says, hey, you're both producing food. What's the big deal?
yeah. Um, I'm not public with this one, but I love that Elliot and Jonathan are, and Nicole Masters. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's just taste the difference. It's nutrition. We're feeding people. Yeah, and Regen Ag's about sunshine. It's that simple. The nutrition, you could test the nutrition and the shelf life. We know our shelf life's triple. And in terms of price point, just to make clear, we're not certified organic. But we make our own compost, seed raising mix. We don't spray anything anywhere, anytime. And we are delivering within about 10 kilometers, I'm just guessing 5 or 6 miles from the farm. So we're currently supplying 15 different places within 10K.
Yeah, so super local. Would you
Yeah,
say your business model has now been, here's what we do well, here's who our core customers are, focus on that, and we'll experiment around the fringes with new customers and with new products, but we cannot mess up that main line that runs through?
totally. And if I look at Curtis's transition, so I worked at Green City Acres. That's the name of Curtis's farm. August 2016. He still had kale transplanted on a weed mat, paddy pan squash. I can't remember, but it wasn't long from here that he transitioned. He dropped those crops. transitioned some of his sales points. And, looking at Ben Hartman too, I think from reading his new book, he's got 7 tools and 7 crops. It's hard to start like that. You've so many crops to test, looking at your sales points, your skills to grow them, your seasonality, like when we can grow beautiful beetroot, but where's the window that's not year round for us? And then I think over time, it's like, well, what's working? What is viable for us and what's not? And
Yeah, like, is
drop
it worth the effort?
100%. Yeah. So
I
yeah, Curtis dropped more and more crops each year.
guess there's two ways a business can go. There is that way where you start out fairly broad and you narrow in. And the other way would be you do just keep expanding out and providing more and more things. I think as a farmer, that would be, if you were going to graph both of these, it'd be as experience and skill goes up, you can add more crops, right?
Yeah. And another way that I like to look at things is I'd stacking enterprises. I had a visitor recently, and they said, "What's stacking enterprises?" And once I explained it, he said, "Oh, that's in business. We just call that diversification of portfolio." um, we have built a beautiful tiny home and that we put on Airbnb. That's a diversification. We Yeah, I'm looking at ideas of later on. We think now that we've built the farm, we've nearly still got more to go, but we could stack. We've got room for another grower to come in and align with us and take on completely different market spaces using our build, and then they could run independently from here and supply other sales streams. There's potential there. One season, we bought in carrots from another grower. They had them earlier and later, and we actually went to their farm and harvested them, processed them, did all the work apart from growing them, sold them, paid them the price they would have got anyways, and took the difference as our income, which meant we were able to supply in a strong year our restaurant chain earlier and later. And the restaurateur said to us, "Are you really going to harvest these carrots from somewhere else just to keep them supplied from us?" And I was like, yes. So many ways we can stack an enterprise. And I think that really brings back to our conversation of community and the relationships that you have that um, build your brand, but also help you to not have to need to do everything. So working at um, uh, Curtis's field manager, Mark, was phenomenal, really motivated. And I know Curtis told me he had him on a good wage. And then he had an elderly couple that lived around the corner that just loved what he did. And they would come in and do most of his tomato work. And he would feed them produce, and his leases, I don't think he paid for any of them. They were all exchanged for veggie boxes.
His main one he did. So if he ever refers to kind of his flagship plot, that was one he had an actual lease on. But the others, yeah, it was exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love the whole idea of stacking enterprise, a very Salatonian thing. Eric Schultz, he runs Steadfast Farm. He's built up his brand to be huge in his area of Arizona, and he's slowly, like, expanded out what he does. So they have a farm, they have a coffee shop, they just bought a restaurant that was right near their farm,
Yes.
and he's partnered with other people. They have an egg business, which is something I think a lot of farms could do. And it's like, well, I'm overworked. Well, the way his works in a nutshell is he partnered with somebody. They raise the eggs. He does all the selling, the branding, the marketing of it. And they came to some agreement where they work out a split off of it. So you could add these things to your brand, just like, you want somebody to come onto your farm to maybe grow other things or sell to other market streams. hey, we have this, you have this. What's everybody bring to the table? What are we happy with here? Because very often resources aren't fully utilized to the max. We're not factories that are making, I don't know, tires where they're like, we keep this line running 24/7. It's your prop house. There's times a year when it's super busy. There's times a year probably when it's empty and things like that. So could you get somebody to come in and fill the gaps where they can go out and find their own market? And sometimes it's also market streams. Like our existing customers love our brand, but they just can't get enough stuff of our brand. You're not interested, say, in eggs, but maybe somebody's like, hey, what if I found somebody near you who could, lease me some land and I'll raise eggs? Can we sell them under the Roebuck brand? And you can kind of, we put in some sort of rotation or whatever it is. And that's another way for people to add product, work with somebody else. Cause I think part of the community is also supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs and business owners. Um, so we all of us doing this when we die, there isn't just a void. I know there's not going to be a void, but it, I, I feel at least there's part of me that is needs to go or is compelled to help people who want to start, do something, give
Mm.
assistance. I've gotten here. I have a lot of things that I've gained along the journey from a lot of mistakes and that. So I'm happy to share that with somebody younger who wants to do it. And if I can help, I really try and do that. Um, but I think that's a big thing. Could you see that in your farm if somebody lived near you in your area and wanted to do honey, like you said, or beef? Well, I don't know. You guys probably don't have cattle, lamb, which I know you do some sheep
Mm.
stuff, but like a tangential thing that's not veg. What would the conversation look like if somebody approached you to partner with them?
Curtis said this sentence once, when the day I lost a lease that I was negotiating for 12 months. Um, he said, and it comes back to gut, gut intuition, but he said, if it's not a F dot dot K, yeah, it's a nah. And I know that sounds polarizing, but so our beekeeper here, um, I like the in-person part. I'm on an airplane. I like to talk with people. I sat next to this elderly lady. She had an accent. I asked her, she's a Kiwi, but I asked, originally she was from the Netherlands. Just got to know her. She said, "Oh, my son's a beekeeper. She lives in our town. He's looking for land once she knew. And would you be interested?" And I said, "Absolutely. Get him to come out and meet us." He came out to meet us. Everything was easy. We made it easy for him. I was like, "This, we can't have bees here or here, but here's a whole lot of options. Tell us what your needs are." And as soon as we understood what he needed, I was like, "Easy. Let's look at." We took him around. Within an hour, he'd chosen a site, and next day he had his hives here. Just this week, he messaged us, said, "I'm harvesting my honey," and his offer to us was, 15% of the honey is yours. And the communication's easy. If I'm grazing in that paddock, I text him, "Hey, the sheep are in," and likewise, "Hey, sheep are out." And I said to him, "You don't have to text me every time you're coming to, you know, see the bees." So we don't have to do nothing. And he's got all the diversity we've created on our landscape and all our cover crops in full flower. It's just win-win, and it's super easy. I'm not ever having to go, "Oh God, he left the gate open," or you know, it's
So it works
uh
out. Like
yeah, it works out. Yeah.
your share of the honey, is that for you, your home thing, or will you put that under a Roebuck brand?
I'm better to no, I won't put it under a Roebuck brand. I'll put it to our community. So all the people that support us, my neighbor with the bobcat that turns my compost, um, my restaurateur that cooked They don't do catering, but for our wedding, he said to us, when you get married, we'll do all the catering with your food, no cost. People like this. Yeah. So Robin Hood, you know.
Yeah, 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 like a give
So
back.
I,
And
so I go to the fishery to supply veg, and they give us fish and I give them veg. And they give me fish, and then I'm on the way home, and from the dairy farm, my friend's farm, I pick up raw milk and I drop them fish. It's like that.
which is one of the other benefits that are hard to quantify on an income statement for farming, right? Like you can say, here's how much I made, but there is this whole, if you can make it work, a barter system, the quality of food you're eating, um, the cost savings from not having to buy that food. I'm sure if you had to pay retail $1 for it with your taxed income dollars, it's a lot more expensive than you trading some veg. You're saving substantially by doing it that way, and so are they.
Yeah. We just had two weddings. One of them was our friend's daughter, and the other one, some friends. One of my farming mentors back in the day, his kids went through school with ours. They just turned up one day and they said, "Hey, my boyfriend's sister's getting married. Um, can we get some produce?" And I was like, "Absolutely." It was two. So we just supplied two weddings. We didn't invoice them or even charge them for them. Got talking with them, showed them around the farm, and the mother has a glass repair business. Now my daughter has stone chips on her windscreen on her car, so you know what happened.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's a tough one for some people, and I lean more the way you are of like it all kind of comes around
yeah,
and balances out in the end. But some people are like, no, like I just can't do that. Like I can't afford to do that. But I think it does tend to balance out. But nonetheless, community, I mean, super important for businesses. If you're a new farmer, somebody's looking to start out, one of the most important things you can do early on is start cultivating a local community, talk to people about the farm. I think bring people out to the farm, even if it's in the early days and you don't have a lot to show. You have way more than the average person has. If I think about the average US consumer,
mm,
they just love to do farm tours, and that's how you can start to get customers. And I can see people saying, well, that's a lot of work to do a farm tour. It's like, really, it's once a month. You get some people out, maybe you sell some stuff, you give some stuff away. If you convert a fraction of those people and they become loyal customers, it's worth it. And early on, what else are you going to do? I mean, there's not a lot of things that you can do to get new customers, but you're going to have to try a bunch of stuff and see what works. But I know from just talking to you and so many other business owners that when you get that nucleus of customers that becomes your loyal customer base, whether those customers are businesses or individuals, that they will support you through thick and thin in the long term as long as they can. And that keeps a lot of businesses going. You might not notice it in easy times, but it's when the hard times come that support is so critical and you can really lean on it.
mm, yeah, for sure. Um, I don't know if this is even relevant. So Tanya's the face of the farm now on deliveries, which is really for us. It's It's a lot of communication, a lot of relationship building, and it's a hustle, you know. And she might be in the heat of the day, needing to get to 15 different places. Um, we just had carrots come back on. She was at the fishery. A lady came in and said, "Hey, I've just been at the supermarket and brought your last 3 bags of carrots." No, and then no, your last bag of carrots. And then she leaned in and got 3 bags of carrots out from at the fishery. Um, we know people enjoy our food from stories like this. Yeah, it's
Which
uh,
which is awesome, just the spiritual uplift from that. And sometimes that's much more valuable than the money for a business owner is to have somebody say, hey, we just love your stuff.
100%. And we heard it, especially from mums at our first supermarket. We hear it all the time. Um, Thank you for what you do. Our kids are eating food again. We choose your products for their lunches. Um, there's a lot of appreciation. It's nice to feel that, it's not always the easiest being a food producer, but aside from, whether it's weather or whatever it is, it's sales down to sales go down or whatever. The um, I was just at a big event in Christchurch, and I just really realized that the value of health. I haven't been sick not one day in 14 years. Last place I want to be is at the doctor, and the very last place I want to be is at the hospital. I really value that. I can't put a price on it.
Yeah.
And so it's that I couldn't have the diet I do without the relationships we have with other people.
The interconnectedness of it all, people uplifting people. It's part of being a small farmer and these day and age. So the world isn't all bad. There's a lot of good out there.
Oh, yeah,
And
be nice people.
yeah, it's things like this where you see it. Thanks for watching this episode of the Urban Farmer Rewind. If you're a farmer and you'd like to join me as a guest for a future episode of the Rewind, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have you on and talk shop. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.